It's hard to believe that Pinocchio, an animated feature from 1940, is considered one of the darkest Disney films today. We have so many Disney movies fighting for this title. The Lion King, The Incredibles, Dumbo, 101 Dalmatians, Up, even Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, its predecessor in the animated canon. And yet, somehow Pinocchio continues to hold the title. The reason is not that despite being projected as children's films, the other movies didn't have darkness burned into their storylines. Because there's definitely that. Oh, there's so much of that. But what sets Pinocchio apart from all of that is its ending. All the other movies, despite their twistedness, end up having happy endings. The villains die in the end, the heroes succeed, and everyone else lives happily ever after. Except that never happens in Pinocchio. And I have two reasons for saying that, which I will be exploring in today's video. So, hey everyone, this is Ritika. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so sorry for such a long gap in my videos earlier. I was out of town and did not have access to my laptop. But hey, now that I'm back, here's a video for you. This video will take a look at some of the darkness present in the 1940 classic, Pinocchio, and also what that might mean for the characters after the movie ends. I hope you like it enough to stick till the end though. And before I begin, I would like to request you to maybe like, subscribe and share this video if you enjoy it. I'm a very newcomer when it comes to the YouTube game, so that would be really helpful to me. Thank you. Do you remember what the story of Pinocchio was about? What its moral was? Before I rewatched this film last year, all I remember about Pinocchio's tale was how it was about a talking puppet whose nose grew every time he lied. The moral of the story in that way was supposed to be that one must not lie and must be truthful at all times. However, as I began rewatching this movie, I realized that the lying only factors at one small segment within the film. The movie in itself is divided into parts. Every part holds a different villain. In fact, it's probably one of those Disney films that has the maximum number of villains. I mean, if there ever was a contest like that, I'm almost certain Pinocchio would be right at the top. Because here, we don't have one person projected as a villain, or two, or even three. Rather, there are 5 such beings that are either naturally mean or that people are genuinely afraid of. See, the thing is that these villains are actually presented as obstacles in Pinocchio's ways. Right at the start, he's told by the blue fairy that there are conditions for him to be a real boy.
Prove yourself brave, truthful, and unselfish, and someday you will be a real boy.
A real boy!
Ergo, in order for him to finish his father's wish, he needs to prove all of these things about himself. And since he's practically only a few hours old, it is a long way to achieve these qualities. These villains, then, are ways for him to do that. Each time someone bad arrives, he has to save himself and prove his worth, until he's ready to be unselfish and sacrifice himself for love. The sacrifice pays off and he returns from a pseudo-death to be a real boy. Of course, the morals here are simple. Don't be fooled by strangers. Always listen to your elders. And don't ever get tempted so easily.
But remember, a boy who won't be good might just as well be made of wood.
Good morals, of course, except for the twisted ways in which they are presented. The film thematizes these morals through the themes of human trafficking, the horrors of the entertainment industry, and the prevalent existence of conmen. What's worse about all of this is that the villains who ensure that these themes prevail actually end up getting away with barely a thing lost. As I analyze in this video each of the villains of this movie, I shall explain a little bit of how a film that is essentially supposed to be a children's movie also presents these dangerous themes in a perverted manner. Honest John and Gideon the Cat. This villainistic duo is first introduced to us as a pair of tricksters. Their main source of livelihood is via conning people and then gaining money out of them. That is what they do to Pinocchio as well. While he's on his way to school, they tempt him with the promise of a life of fame at the marionette show. And he gets that. Pinocchio gets to be the star puppet who doesn't have strings attached to him. The public loves him, and he is incredibly happy too. That is until he finds out that he has actually been double-crossed. Too easily influenced by Honest John, the newborn puppet had no clue what it meant to be dishonest. And so, to make their own profit, they actually sell him off to Stromboli, the master puppeteer. We later meet the duo once again in what is probably a bar. They're drinking and bragging about their exploit of the day, who just happens to be a young wooden puppet. Their listener, an old man in a red coat, a very, very strange imagery, mind you, then shows them how much money he can give them for some work of his own. Seeing the bag of coins, Honest John's first thought goes straight to murder. And he doesn't even hesitate at the idea. It's the idea of Pleasure Island that freaks him out. That too because there are laws against it. And even then he doesn't mind doing what the coachman wants, to collect young boys who have strayed from their paths, despite knowing that something bad is going to happen to them. Because apparently the laws don't matter as
they never come back as boys.
Talk about evil, eh? But before I go to talk about the true devil in disguise in this story, let me once go back and talk about Stromboli. He's the second villain of the film. Well, third if we count Honest John and Gideon the cat as separate, but since they're together all the time, I'm just going to take them as one person. Anyway, despite all of that, I doubt we can blame Stromboli for any of his villainous. For him, Pinocchio is just a puppet that can talk. He's not exactly a human boy that Stromboli would pity him. He's just a toy. A strangely magical toy, but a toy nonetheless. It's not like when the blue fairy turned him into a living person, she ensured that everyone else would understand his story. So unless Geppetto or someone else, say the blue fairy herself, comes and tells Stromboli that this is a sentient being and that he's not allowed to profit from him, because that would be child abuse, I don't think it would even occur to the puppet master. He's certainly a villain for all of us and for Pinocchio as well, for the things he says to him and for kidnapping him for his own gain. Like I said, child labor. And yet, I doubt he considers himself much of that. For him, it's just a way to earn some profit. And yet, it is through him that the film depicts the horrors of the entertainment industry, how children, specifically child actors, are marketed, how they get lost in contracts and promises such that they end up living in a symbolic cage rather than leading a normal life. That he gets away scot-free just goes to show how much of the people responsible for such a situation towards child actors get away scot-free too. And yet, I doubt they ever blamed themselves for any of it. It was all for success, eh? The way Pinocchio disappears from his caravan, I bet he felt cheated more than anything else. But then again, within the context of the story, it makes sense for him to not be mentioned later on. I mean, his role is done. He was a master puppeteer who the protagonist has now escaped. Similar to Honest John and Gideon the cat, who, after collecting the boys for the coachman's carriage, were never mentioned again, he is not too. But at least with Stromboli, we know everyone is safe. How many sentient wooden puppets will he find in the future, huh? These two, on the other hand, these two will always be on the lookout for the people they can con. Not just boys, but girls and men and women and old people. Who knows how long until they're caught? And the coachman? We know he's a devil in disguise from the moment he's introduced to us. One look at the way his face turns red in this scene and we know something's up. From the moment he mentions Pleasure Island, we know that there's something wrong with that place too. It's a strange paradise where you can do whatever you want. And boys do that. But that's also how they end up as jackasses. The horrifying sights of what happens to these young boys have been imprinted on my mind since I watched this film as a kid myself. You do not follow strangers, else you end up a donkey. Naturally then, the coachman is also the most evil of them all. Yet, he too gets away scot-free. As soon as Pinocchio escapes the island, we do not hear of him again. The blue fairy doesn't promise us that he would be taken care of, and we know that she knows about this because she pretty much knows everything. What's even sadder is that neither Pinocchio nor Jiminy Cricket ever mention it again. Pinocchio called Lampwick his best friend, but he never even thinks of the boy again. And the coachman? What did he have to lose in this entire sequence? Just one boy? He can get thousands more of those in the future. Who knows how many he has already had in the past? Now finally, how can we finish the segment on Pinocchio's villains without talking about the Monstrous Whale? It's the only creature in the entire film that people fear. And yet, I don't find him that much of a villain. I mean, he's a whale. He needs to survive. He's doing just what his body has been made to do. Eating. That's the law of nature, isn't it? The big fish eats the small fish eats the smaller fish, and that's the way it goes. I doubt that's much villainous, although it does make me sad to think that Monstro is the only villain-like character in the film to have received some sort of punishment. Not only does he have a fire burning inside of him, but he also smashes his head pretty hard. All in all then, the treatments of the villains is enough to make me consider Pinocchio as one of the darkest Disney films. But that's not where it stops. At the end of the movie, the fairy turns Pinocchio into a real boy. He had almost died saving his father from the attacks of Monstro the Whale. But his sacrifice has come to mean something, so he's alive again. And although that results in joy, there's a much darker after effect to it that the movie never addresses. What next? What next happens to this happy family? How does Geppetto explain to his neighbors that he now has an 8-year-old son? Is anyone really going to believe that a fairy came to turn his wooden puppet into a boy? When the film starts, we never see any of his neighbors interacting with Geppetto, or Pinocchio for that matter, so no one even knows that he was once a talking puppet. The closest anyone has come to knowing him has been through the puppet show. But I doubt anyone's gonna link this to that. How then will the neighbors believe him? I mean, this is the same guy who made clocks like these. But hey, darkness aside, that's it from me today. I'm sorry for ruining one of your favorite childhood classics, but this is Ritika, and these are my reasons for finding Pinocchio as probably the darkest Disney film ever. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. What do you think of all of this? Meet me in the comments below if there's anything you'd like to talk about regarding this video or the movie or anything in general, and we will. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share if you liked it. I hope to see you again next time, maybe with more subscribers. Thank you for watching.